And I think we're ready to go to our second paper, which will be presented by Yao Li, to mitigate damages and support growth through e-government, a preliminary examination of economics in the global pandemic, which she does in collaboration with her colleagues at the National University of Singapore. So, Yao Li. You're on mute.
Oh, okay, sorry. So can you see my PowerPoint correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. In this paper, actually originally we also trying to focus on the Southeast Asia like Samuel do, but so far at this stage, we only finished the very general preliminary examination on all countries that covered. We're trying to investigate the role of the economic role of e-government in pandemic. So I'm going to present in these 4 aspects. So the motivation, as Samuel has just presented, that the COVID has interrupted our daily life and the economic behavior a lot, very seriously. So government of various economies also adopt various policies to contain the spread of virus. And also since the pandemic, the internet-based activities has increased a lot, including the e-government. So on the other hand, the government also tried lots of measures, policies to protect and revitalize the economy. However, due to the development gaps across economies in terms of both the economic development, the e-government development, and the pandemic development, all these the impact of the pandemic and the e-government on the economic growth are quite different. So our objectives for in this study is trying to examine or estimate this kind of difference in the impact. Okay, so for the literature, we have find lots of literature which address the impact of pandemic on economic activities. For example, the decrease of the economic, the slowing down of economic growth. And also we find that literature shows that the e-government improved the economic performance before the pandemic. Okay, including the productivity of the public service, the business increase of business opportunities, and the increase of FDI and the GDP per capita. And we also find some literature shows that the pandemic and the e-government affect each other. They have interactive impacts, and also there's a few study shows that e-government, the better e-government help to facilitate the economic policy implementation during the pandemic. However, so far we haven't find any quantitative analysis about how the e-government affects economic growth in the pandemic. So we trying to do this. In this research, we have 3 groups of estimations. The first group are the estimation of a growth model, including e-government and pandemic-related variables. The second group, we're trying to investigate the relationship between e-government and the pandemic. The last group, we estimate the growth model again by introducing the interactive terms between pandemic and e-government. Okay, basically, the growth model is like here, as we also show in the paper. So we include the conversion terms, the GDP per capita lagged 1 period, and also the for growth rate and for the growth rate is a quarterly seasonal adjusted quarterly data. We also include the investment, the human capital, and the growth of the population. And then this V, the V is a vector of all kinds of government-related variables, including the pandemic policies and the development of e-government. So for the measurement of two group of important factor, the first one is the e-government. So we measure the e-government in three aspects: the information communication technology construction. That's the first one. The second one is the provision of e-service. The third one is the public participation in the e-government. And then for the measurement of COVID-19 or the pandemic, we cover four aspects. The first is how serious, including the confirmed cases and the share of confirmed cases in the total population of the economy. The second is the stringency in the extent of the policies. The third one is the health policies, including the vaccination or the investment in the tracing. And the fourth aspect is the economic recovery policies. Actually, all these data are provided in this the following three major data source. The first one is the Oxford COVID-19 stringency index database, which covers all our measurement about the pandemic. And then the e-government development index is provided by UN, which is a biannual, only a biannual data. So we cover the 4 years from 2014 to 2020. And then for all the economic related data are from the CIC database. So it's include both the annual data and the quarterly data. So now I'm trying to save my time to report our results. So for the first group of estimation, we firstly check investigate the impact of e-government. For the first two, for the column 1, actually except the column 2, the other 4 columns are based on data before pandemic. Only the second column are the data during the pandemic. That's the 7 quarter from 2020 to 2021. Okay, only 7 quarter for the column 2. Okay, so we can see that. So let's start from the column 4. So we can see that before pandemic, the e-government significantly promote the economic growth. Okay, so here is a significant positive index. And also, if we decompose e-government, because this UN e-government index, it includes 3 components. The first one is human capital, which we included here in the benchmark equation. And then the other 2 components are the provision of e-service and the telecommunication construction. So we can see that before the pandemic, the provision of e-service has significantly positive impact. However, if we add the public participation index, also provided by UN, both the e-government and the public participation are not significant, because these 2 are kind of some collinearity issue. So then we continue to investigate the impact of pandemic on the economy. We first use the dummy variable 0, 1. So in all the estimation in this table, we cover both the before pandemic and in the pandemic. So it's from 2015 to 2021. The quarter 1 of 2015 to the 3rd quarter of 2021. Okay, so here we can see that once we include the during pandemic data into the estimation, the pandemic significantly, interrupt the growth of the economy. So it's negative significantly. And also, if we use the confirmed case and the share of confirmed case, it's also negative negative, and the share of confirmed case actually more significant. Then if we decompose we include, not decompose, we include both the pandemic dummy and the pandemic policies. So 3 aspects of the policy: the stringency, the health, and the economic. So we find that actually the stringency policy help to protect the growth of the economy. So it's significantly positive. But the health and the economic support, as we know, that it's a lot of spending of the money. So actually, in the short run, so far in these 7 quarters, they shows negative impact on the economic growth. And then for the second group, we're trying to investigate the relationship between e-government and the pandemic, and also the e-government and the pandemic policies. So we find here that actually the pandemic, again, the dummy variable, overall, it improves the development of e-government. Here is positive. And then when we decompose the e-government, into provision of e-service and the telecommunication, we find that pandemic helped to improve the telecommunication construction. However, it has negative impact on the e-participation and the provision of e-service. This might because during the pandemic, lots of public administration service actually stopped. So which shows a negative, a decrease of the e-participation and the provision of e-service. And then when we check how serious the series of the pandemic on the development of e-government, we can see we did it for 2 quarters, the second quarter and the third quarter of the 2020. We find that the impacts are more significant on the third quarter. Like Samuel just said, the most serious quarters are these 2. Okay, so in 2020 at least. So we can see that the more serious, the better the e-government developed. Actually the pandemic, the series of the pandemic also promotes the development of e-government. And actually it's a promotion in all aspects, including the participation, the e-service provision, and the telecommunication instruction. And then if we check the relationship between pandemic and actually the pandemic policy, their impact on the e-government development, we can see that the stringent policy has significant negative impact on all aspects of e-government. Like just now, we have shown that the stringent policy, it has actually decreased the provision of e-service and stopped some of the government public services. However, the health policy and the economic econ support policy promote the development of e-government in all aspects, as the implementation of these policies needs the help of e-government. Later, we will show that e-government actually do increase the government response and the strength of this policy. So here we check we use lag 1 period e-government index to test its impact on the government's choice or implementation of the pandemic policy. And we can see it's all positive here. It's all positive. So it indicates that if an economy has better e-government development, it tends to have stronger stringency and more health econ support, and the government response to pandemics is stronger. Okay, and then here is the series of the pandemic on the impact of series of pandemic on the policies. We can see that the more serious the pandemic, the more number of confirmed cases, the e-government development also is faster or better. Yeah. something like this. And then we also check the e-government. We decompose the e-government into the service provision and the construction. We can see the more e-service provision, then the pandemic policy will be stronger. And also for the telecommunication, it only helps the health policy and the overall government response. But basically, it's positive. So the last group of estimation, we introduced the interactive variables between e-government and pandemic-related variables. We also find some interesting results. First of all, here, when e-government and the pandemic dummy interactive added, we find that e-government actually, you see that the pandemic is still negatively impact the growth of the economy. So if we add the interactive, find e-government actually helped to mitigate or alleviate the negative impact of the pandemic. Okay, and then if we just use the e-government, and the e-participation, and we use the ratio, the share of confirmed case, we find the impact of e-government alone still it's significantly negative. Like just now we have shown that for the during the pandemic, the e-government had some negative impact. And the overall, but if we add the e-participation, the public participation, so if the public participation increase, it can alleviate the negative impact of e-government. Then we, for the equation 7, we decompose the e-government, and we find that negative impact is actually because of the telecommunication. The telecommunication, because this is also a lot of expenditure increase, government expenditure increase. So in short run, it's it's a crowd out of the investment, other investment. So this is a negative impact. But for the impact of the e-government on the pandemic policy, we can see that the provision of e-services actually strengthen some of the pandemic impact. For example, the e-com support, it's negative. Originally, it's negatively impact the pandemic, and then it's even more negative when you have the e-service. It means the implementation of the policy is better. So the increase of the spending, the crowding out effect of the spending is even stronger. However, for the stringency index, we can see just now we already mentioned that we have evidence that the stringency actually protect the growth during the pandemic. So the better telecommunication construction strengthen this kind of impact. Okay, then if we back to the equation 6, we can see that the e-government overall strengthen the protection impact of the stringency impacts policies, but e-participation actually weaken the impact, the protection impact of stringent policy. This can be we find some supporting evidence from research about British says when the e-participation is higher, it's make it harder for the government to make the decision about the stringent policy. So this is so overall we have these preliminary findings. First one, for the economic growth, the stringency policy helped to protect the growth, but the health and the economic policy slow down the economic growth. And but in the long run, as we have find that before the pandemic, actually e-government helped to promote the economic growth. And then in the short run, we have find that the public participation should be paid more attention, as it helped to alleviate the negative investment impact of the e-government. And then the EG development helped to enhance positive impact of stringent policy, but public participation weakened it. And then for the e-government development, the e-government actually has positive impact on the pandemic. The public participation and the online service, when we decompose it, has negative. And then for the pandemic policies, the stringency policy slow down the development of e-government, but the health and economic policy promote the e-government development. And finally, for the impact of e-government on the pandemic policy, overall, we find that a better e-government, the economy with better e-government, they will have stronger government response. Yeah. So for next step, we were trying to do some discrete analysis, focus on the Southeast Asian and the East Asian economies. Actually, here are the list of economies we included. So for the Southeast and the East Asian, we have Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, and Vietnam. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yao Li. This went a little bit longer than our other papers, but we don't have a discussant. Our discussant couldn't make it with us today. So I just, if I could, first of all, point out that we've got one question for you from the in the Q&A section that says that your results show that e-support has a negative effect on growth. And finds it's counterintuitive, isn't it? And this would be your crowding out effect?
E-support, you mean, no, that's the provision of the e-services. Yeah, in the short run, because it's also a kind of increase of the government expenditure in the short run. But in the long run, it's can I share it again? Wait, it's here. In the let me show you the share the screen again. So in the long run, actually, it has the positive impact. E-service, you see here, the positive e-service provision is positive 1.7. The negative is just for the pandemic, because during the pandemic, it's lots of the services stopped.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. And just to if I could just ask one general question. You're doing some very interesting empirical research, and I'm wondering if, looking forward, after the pandemic is over, where do we invest in e-government as a better sort of way of risk mitigation and these sorts of things? Where do you think would be the highest productivity?
I think the more important thing so far is the increased public participation. Because actually lots of services are there, and the construction, the 5G is already there, but the participation actually is still low. So I think including the education, teach people how to use that would be more productive. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.